have never seen you write before. It's like watching a child who just learned to write and they're practicing.
I don't write a whole lot of stuff these days.
Oh, this is terrible.
It's not for anybody but me. It's
Okay.
not what my...
Now listen, what did you do during Snowpocalypse? Did you get out there? Did you make a snowman?
No, I didn't make a snowman.
What? Did you go out in the snow at all?
I did. I put on my combat boots and my fleece pants, which had somehow shrunk since last year when I wore them, the one time it was really cold.
I don't think they shrunk.
Yeah, that's how pants work. Every year they get smaller.
Or...
there's no other option. They just
right.
get smaller. That's why they get harder and harder to button every year.
Let's start the show.
Oh, I thought we already had.
Episode 2.
Welcome to the show.
Welcome back. We made it to episode 2.
I'm not done understanding how pants keep shrinking every year.
They don't. Trust me.
I did go out. There's a new bar at the end of my street in Plaza Midwood, and it's called Spanky's Hangout. And it is, the building has always been a bar since I moved into that neighborhood, but it's never been like really in my wheelhouse. This is a dive bar squarely in my wheelhouse. They've only been open about a week, but 2 thumbs up. You have to come check it out sometime. I don't know if you're allowed in Plaza Midwood.
I don't think so yet. It's been a while. But anyway, welcome back. Episode 2, episode 1, massive success.
Sponsored by Spanky's Hangout.
No.
That's literally the name of the bar.
It's not sponsored by Spanky's.
Yeah, I mean, they're brand new. They don't have any money yet.
Perfect. That's just the kind of sponsorship we're looking for.
We should do some live remotes from like dive bars around town.
Okay, well, why don't we get into this week's episode? We've got a really great set. Now that we're settling into our go-to structure, we're going to do a little bit of a news roundup. We're going to talk about quickly the things that we're paying attention to. And then we've got 2 great stories, Siemens and the announcement, and the one on everyone's lips and ears at water coolers.
Spanky's Hangout.
No, the FTA report on transit. Very close, very similar. Why don't we start with the news roundup, though? Now, this has to be lightning round. We've only been
saying that
7-8 years that we've been doing this.
That we've talked about lightning rounds, and they end up being 30 minutes.
Let's do production. Can you keep us on track for lightning rounds?
We need a big, like a gong or something.
We don't have money for a gong yet. All right, so news roundup. Let's start with that. I'll tee them up. Well, you're really giddy today. Okay.
I've not slept well.
Great. So in this section, we're going to do rapid fire, quick punchline on what the news is that everyone should be paying attention to, mostly local, maybe some regional stuff or relevance to Charlotte, and then a quick sound bite of why we care, what stuck out to us.
Okay.
And this just jumps on our list every week. Let's start with one we saw in the Observer, some news with the Charlotte Symphony and the conductor.
Yeah, for anybody who watched the Grammys, and I know many of you did because you were either cheering or yelling at your screen on Facebook, we had a Charlotte Grammy where people were mad about Bad Bunny and other stuff.
And they yelled at Facebook?
Yeah, well, they yelled on Facebook.
We're already not doing the lightning round well. What happened?
Charlotte's got a Grammy winner. So our maestro for the Charlotte Symphony Orchestra, Kwame Ryan, won a Grammy for the Best Opera Recording. So another feather in the cap of our arts and culture community here. And our mutual friend, David Fisk, the CEO there, feather in his cap for identifying and bringing such a talented individual to Charlotte to be leading our orchestra. Congrats to our Grammy winner.
To me, that's the punchline. Again, everyone, or maybe many people saw the news from the Observer on that. To me, the punchline is David Fisk is a great CEO of the symphony, and these are kind of the kinds of recruitments he can make.
Bringing the best people to town.
And now all of a sudden Charlotte's got a lot.
Charlotte does have a lot.
Next up on the ledger, I noticed something of economic development importance. That's something you and I both like. It is a physical presence coming together in the Pearl Innovation District. If you don't know about that, you probably haven't gotten your news since we gave it last. But the Charlotte Regional Business Alliance, the City of Charlotte, Mecklenburg County Economic Development Partner, EDPNC, and NC Biotech, all coming to have a physical presence.
You forgot our old rule about acronyms.
Can't do it.
Economic Development Partnership of
North Carolina, EDP. I figured leaving the NC off, folks would get
it.
So having that, again, that's going to be a huge driver in our community with health tech, med tech, all of those things. And now you see with all the news with Atrium and Wake Forest and the campus, now them having a centralized one-stop shop, I think that's going to be a big deal. What are you thinking about with that?
Yeah, I mean, all these companies, the EarCads of the world that are plugged into this Pearl District, it's only going to continue to grow in the number of types of companies that are coming in there in that space. having access to all of those economic development partners as they look to expand. They won't have to go far to figure out how to best achieve that.
This lightning round is going so well for us.
Knock on wood.
Yeah. Okay. CMS pays departing general counsel $289,000. Saw this one in the Ledger as well. It was just a little odd, right?
Yeah, I got a feeling this isn't the last story the Ledger's going to be doing on this. I imagine they will be digging into this further. There were 2 years left on the contract. Neither of us knew Andrea Mays, but with CMS attorney, 2 years remaining on the contract, almost $300,000 payout. And from what the Ledger's uncovered there, it looks like it was probably not just a traditional retirement, but maybe a nudging out of this person for reasons unknown. Not necessarily anything nefarious, but I think that Tony and the team over at the Ledger are going to want to understand this a little bit better so they can share with all the taxpayers who pay these salaries.
Well, when you read that story, you can kind of see like some things, like they don't go out and make any big claims, but you read it and you're like, how the news came out, how it's kind of like how they're commenting on it. It just seems a little odd, like maybe there's more to the story.
Yeah, I mean, the time that we had on council together, we saw people depart, and sometimes it was personality conflicts, sometimes it was just a bad fit with the department.
But every single time, we never told the whole story.
Right. I mean, well, that's what I'm saying. Like, it's also, I mean, everyone has left jobs, and everyone would like to be go about the adult way and leave on good terms. Nobody wants to trash the person leaving, or no one wants to trash the organization they're leaving. So there's a lot of this that happens in the real world. The difference is these salaries are paid and these payouts are paid with taxpayer dollars. And so I think there is an expectation of a higher level of transparency than there would be in the private sector.
Jumping over to Longleaf Politics, Andrew Dunn, one of my favorite people to read. I just love the way he writes and the stories he decides to take on.
Used to play basketball with him too.
Really?
Yeah.
You found everyone who was mediocre at basketball. You're like, I'm going to play with that.
We were the bad news bears of pickup basketball groups.
I felt there was a lot of like around the back kind of juggling,
sprained ankles,
yeah, a lot of that. Great.
Torn Achilles.
He has a lot of great pieces. The one that jumped out at me, I don't know if you even read this one.
I read his newsletter.
Oh, good for you.
I like to see.
He had multiple. He had an op-ed, and then he had his newsletter where he went deeper. And it was around the Tom Tillis, Tom Tillis, if you haven't been paying attention, has kind of just started saying what's on his mind, maybe a little more than before. And he poses the question: if this had been the Tom Tillis the entire time, which again, it's one thing to kind of be in a lame duck position, another to have a looming election, even if it's 4, 5, or 6 years out. How would people think differently of him? Any kind of thoughts or punchlines from you after you read that?
I thought his follow-up that he did recently was pretty on the nose, because his point is, it's one thing to say that someone's vulnerable. It's another thing to actually beat a sitting United States senator in a party primary. And so, Michael Whatley probably wouldn't have run if Tom Tillis was running for re-election. If Tom Tillis was running for re-election, Roy Cooper might have decided not to run. So it's easy to say that he would have been in trouble.
You think that? You really think that?
I think Roy probably would have run anyway, but I don't think Michael Whatley would have run. And I don't think that a fringe candidate like a Michelle Morrow would have had any chance at beating a Tom Tillis any more than she has at beating Michael Whatley. But and ultimately, all of the Republicans, generally speaking, are going to come home to Tillis even if they don't like him, the same way that some of them don't like Michael Whatley and they'll likely end up voting for him anyway. So I think Andrew had a lot of good points there. I am encouraged. I'm enjoying this part, though, because I'm enjoying watching Tom Tillis find his courage and
Tom Tillis has
back.
Always had courage. People love and people hate him, but I
don't hate him. My point is, it's not. He's always known what was right. And I think that's the thing for me, where I'm like, and I get that it's hard because you're literally putting your family in danger.
Your side of the aisle, when people become undangerous, you love to lean into them. Well, although, in fairness,
he's got a John McCain streak.
You've always been. I think it's somewhat fair to.
And I'd like, and my party could call spades better than we do at times too. But I think that it is remarkable to see members of Congress and all elected bodies, when they decide to not run for re-election, suddenly have a lot more oomph behind their opinions, and they're a lot more willing to call out something that they knew was wrong all along, but felt uncomfortable saying earlier.
Two final quick
kudos to Senator Tom Tillis for calling a spade on things like Stephen Miller.
Okay, let's calm down. So then
you brought it up.
Final two, lightning round once again, Larken. Axios mentioned upcoming concerts on the horizon. I think you and I both had interest in one of those, so that was a good piece. What's the most exciting concert on your horizon?
I think I spent my entire first month's salary in this new job on 2026 concert tickets. I'm going to see and it's a wide array of things too. 9 Inch Nails, James Taylor, Sting, Chris Stapleton, and Zach Bryan. Got tickets for all of them.
9 Inch Nails.
It set me back like a whole month's paycheck. Tickets are expensive.
Yeah, Chris Stapleton is one of my favorite people to listen to, but I saw him live last year, and I don't know that he loves live performances himself.
He's apparently very shy.
He comes in, does it, moves. I think he likes making the music and stuff. So 9 Inch Nails, 100%, can't wait. And finally, back to the Ledger. Apparently, Steak 48 is Charlotte's most romantic restaurant. Is that where you go on your dates, Larken?
Steak 48 is phenomenal. Still always and forever.
Is it the most romantic spot?
Well, I'm not sure the exact data they're using. I think it's just simply like, do people, when they put a review on Open Table, do they click, this is a romantic restaurant? And I think if you were just saying yes or no, is it? Yes, it is.
You mean people take the time to click buttons like that?
Yeah, people leave reviews.
Yeah, that's...
Yes, I do.
You're the kind of person that 100%, they're like, we just have a quick 30-minute survey we'd like you to take. You're like, excellent. Let me clear my day.
Well, they asked.
Okay, so you agree there is not one more romantic spot in Charlotte.
No, I didn't say I agree.
What do you think beats it?
I think Fig Tree is a great romantic restaurant.
Beef and Bottle.
Beef and Bottle is great. Beef and Bottle.
I've now plugged them twice.
I think Beef and Bottle is more like a place to go with the fellas. I mean, I think it's
fellas?
a great. It's a guy's night out. Fig Tree is a romantic. That's like Fig Tree is where you propose to somebody. Although I'm not sure I'd propose to somebody in a restaurant, but if you were, Fig Tree would be a good place to do it.
Sir Edmund Haley's.
I mean, that's a great place
for dates, though.
I mean, anywhere. You know where else would be a great place for dates?
Oh, talk to me.
Spanky's Hangout. You got to check his place
I
out.
think you're going to need to, before we launch this episode, go lock in a sponsorship at this point. I don't know, man. Okay, well, that is
Hayden Miller High Lifes.
End of the fair enough. End of the roundup of news. We'll have to see how people like that. Now, just an even quicker roundup of what we're watching, what we think is important. I'll start us off. Number one, we mentioned it before. Actually, why don't you hit this one? The city budget. There's been some delays. What should people who care about the most important, impactful thing locally to their day-to-day lives, the city, the municipal government, and the budget process, which is that time of year?
Well, one of the now two delays because of weather. So one of the things is typically a lot of these conversations start to happen around the city council's annual retreat, which, particularly with 3 new members coming on to city council in December, is a good chance for them to start to sink their teeth into that stuff. It got delayed from the first storm, and then it got delayed again from the second storm, and there's not a date set yet for that. So I don't know what their plan is to make up for the time they intended to spend with council members on it. One of the things that I think is the case in a lot of stuff in government, but particularly in the budget, and from our vantage point when we were in there, is people really start paying attention to the budget closer to the summer when it gets adopted. It has to be adopted by the end of June because it's the budget for the year.
95% of it is baked by
the
then.
fiscal year that they are setting a budget for starts on July 1st. And so people, in May or in June start to go, oh my God, they're about to vote on this budget. Let's see what's in it that we do and don't like and advocate for it. Well, if you're looking at it in June and advocating, you might have missed the boat. And so a lot of this stuff happens over the course of a lot of workshops that they'll do from now until June. It happens at the retreat, which may or may not get rescheduled. And now is the time to engage if you want something in the budget or you want something out of the budget or you want the priorities realigned. Waiting until it's really in the news cycle in May. It's largely done, and then you're just working around the edges.
It's kind of like South Carolina and their state budget, unlike North Carolina's,
which doesn't have a state budget.
Yeah. But the governor, what they launch as their budget is very important in a strong, kind of powerful governor scenario. It's like that. This is a strong city manager council form of governance. So what he drops out there in the very beginning, like that, the
ends up
time
being a lot
baking,
of what,
right there. Next up, the state budget. We mentioned that the short session, April, I think it's going to be underway. Again, everyone's kind of waiting for these March primaries to see what's happening. But again, as they didn't pass a budget last year in the long session, the only state in the nation that didn't get that done, there's a lot of pressure and a lot of focus up there on getting a really good short session done, a budget passed. I think
things like raises for teachers.
Yep, conversations are underway. So much like that, the time to be in those conversations is now, as they're kind of building on that path. And then when April hits, things will really start moving fast if everything goes really well. So now's the time to be focused there.
And this was unlike in some years past where you've got a governor that's in disagreement with the legislative leaders. This was the leaders being in disagreement, or each body of the legislature being in disagreement with each other, the House and the Senate, on different pages, particularly as it related to the phasing out or not of some of these tax breaks. And so it was really a House and Senate disagreement as opposed to something with that the governor was sideways with them about.
And finally, we can't have an episode go by without you speaking about food. So you're taking a trip, more food things for Charlotte?
Headed to New York tomorrow with a large group of chefs, mixologists, tourism officials from Charlotte, a delegation of us going up there to do some stuff with the James Beard Foundation that really puts Charlotte in the spotlight, so that and there'll be national food critics and folks from James Beard and all these other high-profile folks in this space, that as they're going around and nominating chefs or identifying chefs to be finalists for James Beard Awards and things of that it just puts a lot of these sort of all-star chefs that we have in town, and mixologists and other folks, in the spotlight in a way that allows them to be more likely to get the recognition they deserve as some of these really high-profile award seasons come up. So it should be a lot of fun. We're going to get to do a number of courses, each made by different chefs, paired cocktails from folks like Colleen Hughes over at Supperland and Alleluia Hall. I am, as you can imagine, very excited about it.
Is there any studies out there linking the shrinking of pants to these kinds of trips?
There could be some sort of correlation. I still think it has more to do with the fabric and less to do with...
Was Spanky's up for any nominations at this point?
No, but you can bet that I'll be doing my best to make sure they are next year.
Okay.
Best new dive bar.
That's the best we've ever done at 2 different lightning rounds. Now
you've got me really reconsidering the problem with the pants, though.
Well, I would definitely reconsider it. So now we get into our final kind of segment of the show where we go deep dive. Usually it'll be one issue. Today we're going to kind of a little more quickly, but in more depth, go through one, and then we'll spend our time on the main course, if you will, on the pants episode. So let's just start, though, quickly with this Siemens Energy NC expansion news. 500 new jobs, $421 million in investment for manufacturing and operations. Charlotte and Raleigh, as well as some other places, are part of a broader $1 billion plus U.S. growth strategy by what they're doing. And the way I like to think about this, because we've talked about it already in our previous episode, AI explosion is huge, and that is going to be the internet of the 90s and how it changed the world, but maybe even more so for where we are right now. That requires data center growth. That requires utility and power infrastructure. That demand is surging, and Siemens is boosting the local capacities for manufacturing and other things in that spot. So we're a hub for this. Siemens is a big part in advanced energy manufacturing, making us that hub. And the large power transformers, LPTs, as we like to call them in the biz.
That's what I always call them.
That's a big part of the Charlotte space. Didn't receive state or local tax incentives. They had in the past, but not in this one. And that's a amazing stat, as you and I both know, because there's this battle out there where it's unfortunate, but we have to use them. Didn't have to there. And Siemens provides 1/6 of the worldwide electricity is generated there by Siemens. So that is quite incredible. What are you thinking about on this?
Well, shout out you mentioned all the people that are building this sort of economic development hub at the Pearl. Shout out to all those organizations, because them and Lee Lilly, who's the cabinet secretary that handles a lot of these economic development recruitment efforts, have had a really high batting average of late, and there's been a lot of great announcements, and our state continues to be a place that folks want to do business. And as we heard from our friends who are moving the Scout headquarters here to Charlotte, when people come here now, they see it as a place they want to live. And so just proud of our city, proud of our state that we continue to be that appealing to folks wanting to do business.
I think
I will say there's 2 things, and and I think our friend Braxton Winston has pointed this out on something that he wrote recently. We do need to make sure that, and these are not mutually exclusive, we need to make sure that it is not only a good place to do business, but it is a good place to work. And so he talks about that a lot. Obviously, he's leading one of the larger labor unions in our state now. And we need to make sure that we know a lot of these jobs, particularly the ones you've touched on, are good paying jobs. We need to make sure that that's the kind of jobs we're recruiting and that we're giving people the opportunity to thrive as individuals as well as companies.
Okay, I mean, I sort of agree with, not disagree.
People are coming here for our workforce. We need to make sure our workforce is being rewarded for being as strong as it is.
Okay, yes, but we're only on episode 2, so we're going to wait till we, again, we'll have
Braxton on the pod sometime.
What I saw on almost 10 years of city council, where you and I were sitting side by side, and a lot of this was more towards the end, but there's one thing to make sure we're protecting workers and we have a great place where they want to work. It's another thing to go so far as like things are pretty good and we make a problem sometimes where it doesn't need to be. And sometimes people would frown at higher paying jobs coming in to the community, and there's a sentiment to say, oh, we want more $50,000, $60,000 jobs because that is open to a wider variety of people. You need all of it, and you can't demonize the bigger jobs.
I'm not saying every job needs to be a six-figure job. I think that people across the spectrum of salaries can be treated with respect and treated with dignity. And
there's no doubt. But do you feel like that's not happening?
Well, not in the instance that we're talking about here. I think that those.
But even more broadly, generally.
Well, I do think that there are jobs that we will particularly, and not to open a whole nother can of worms. I know we're out of the lightning round, so we can go a little longer, But I think particularly as people are leaving our country either by choice or by force, who do a lot of the lower paying jobs and who've for years taken on jobs that many of Americans didn't necessarily want to take on and they're not going to want to take on going forward, I do think we're going to run into issues where we have difficulty filling a lot of these more entry-level, lower paying jobs. And so I don't know what the solution is for that necessarily, but
I agree with you. But the solution is not to villainize or make it harder to get these higher paying jobs as well. I think you can do both at the same time, and I've just seen firsthand where that isn't always the case. I'm not again saying that this is the case for that, but you triggered me, trigger warning over here for that. I do think the two key points to kind of end cap the Siemens good news is, one, workforce is going to be something really important, and it's almost the other side of the coin of what we've just been talking about. Their biggest need is going to be the kind of talent, whether it's on the high end manufacturing, the electrical testing, the mechatronics.
My favorite kind of tronics.
Mechatronics, industrial automation, all kinds of different things there. So it's not just an incentive, which they didn't require for this. It's about having that ecosystem of the talent with our local community colleges, our broader K through 12 system, everything like that. And number two, speed, right? Speed, the biggest risk they're going to face is not demand. It's going to be the timeline. And that's permitting, all the coordination with different groups, transportation needs for these huge, things they're building and they have to move out. So this is where, as we've talked about with different topics in the past, the community, the municipality, all the leadership needs to lean in and make sure this is an easy place to do business. And then we'll get more growth without all the incentives that litter the ecosystem today.
Yep.
So that is that. Now the big topic. It dropped yesterday in kind of the aftermath of the snow storm, the Federal Transit Administration's report. It was on the heels of Administrator Molinaro coming down on a trip. The two headlines that really grab everyone's attention plucked out of there are the rate of crimes against passengers on the CAT system is 3 times the national average. This was for 2025. And the rate of assault on transit workers at CATS has jumped to 5 times the national average in 2025, after being below the national average the prior 2 years. These are nice kind of asterisks in the wording that I think you and I both believe this was not a political hit piece. This was a bunch of really good people that I had a chance to work with last year who take this work seriously, pointing out some material things, but also CATS under the leadership that they have right now of Brent Cagle, also admitting that they've done a lot of great work, but there's room to go. And being thankful for this and working in good faith. And so what jumped out at you?
Yeah, I mean, a couple of things that I think can be misleading. I don't think they're intentionally misleading in this case. But when we talk about, and I don't know what the raw number is. I don't think you have it in front of you either. But if you go from one of something to two of something from year over year, then you've had 100% increase, or it's doubled. And so there's ways that the statistic is true, and yet when you're talking about something that's a small number. Now, that's not to minimize, as you said earlier today in a different conversation, one attack against someone who's a bus driver or piloting one of our light rail vehicles is too many. One attack against a passenger is too many. And any attack against any of those people is going to make people feel unsafe in a way that causes them to not want to use our system. So it does not minimize that one is too many and we need to strive that there be none. But when we say 2 times more, 3 times more, I'd be curious what the raw number is. I think it's pretty low. The other is they talked in one of the headlines, and again, the FTA can't necessarily help what any particular media outlet grabs and uses as a headline, but one of the headlines that caught people's attention was 18 areas of deficiency. As you kind of estimated, there's really maybe 3 buckets there that a lot of these same things fall into and could be categorized together, much of which is just around processes and procedures. It's around making sure that there's better communication between the top of the organization and the folks on the ground that are actually driving these vehicles. And so, and you mentioned too, there's changes that have been made that are going to have both pros and cons. Asking drivers not to be the enforcement agent on someone who doesn't pay a fare when they get on a bus, but to radio for someone who can then get on the bus and is in a better position to deal with that situation than the driver is, certainly benefit in terms of making sure that the situation doesn't escalate before there's someone there who can handle it. It also means that there's going to be more people who are evading fares, at least in the interim. So I think, again, we both believe in the current leadership of this organization. There's the opportunity with the change in terms of the new authority being created, that a lot of these changes in processes and procedures, it's perfect timing to make them as this new organization is stood up and a leader is identified and hired by this new board that's been created, all by virtue of the fact that we approved this referendum. But progress is being made. Progress is being made before even this report came out in terms of increasing security. Drivers have already said they feel more safe because of it. So I think Brent and team are doing a good job. Clearly, there's still a lot left to do, and I think this is a good roadmap for them to move forward from.
Yeah, I agree. And R&D and the NC listeners, while they get their news from us sometimes, this is also a place to nerd out and maybe get a little deeper. So having sat in that apparatus last year, I reviewed it and kind of broke down to your point of the 18 findings. Really, to me, if you want to understand this in layman's terms, there's really 3 kind of big things.
If we're going to nerd out, give people at least the org chart there. You've got the Secretary of Transportation, and then underneath that,
Secretary of Transportation, Secretary Duffy. Underneath that, the role I was in was acting administrator. Administrator Molinaro is now the full-time Senate confirmed one.
Former member of Congress from New York.
Yeah, upstate. Right. So I sat there in that role before he got his Senate confirmation. And then in the org chart, then there's this, there was, when I joined, 800 plus careers, the people that work and this is they've outlasted many different administrations.
And to back up one step, FAA is all the air travel, and then FTA is basically all other forms of public transportation.
Right, exactly, the public transportation. So you have like highways, not us, right? Things like that. Railroads, not us, but light rail, commuter rail, things like that, buses, all the way to buses. So as a subset of that group in there, there's Joe DiLorenzo headed it. He's the one that signed this report. He sat around the table of all my direct reports during that time, and he leads a great organization. He's an awesome guy, really beloved in the industry. He's the safety guy, safety czar. He's the one dealing with, sending his team on site if there's a crash or a derailment, doing these kinds of
audits. And a lot of these people are people who were there for President Biden, were there for President Trump 1.0, were there for President Obama. These are career folks.
The average tenure of people that work there that I got to know was 15, 17 plus years. They've been around and they've seen a lot. And so
they're not political appointees.
They're not. And I think that's my one big punchline, which is, and you can read it when you read this, they're not out there for gotcha or political things. They're there to do their job and make sure that transit is safe and it progresses and it meets the needs and the priorities of whatever administration they're serving, which in this case is safety, family-centric, things like that. But when you read all 18, to me, they really fell into three major buckets. The first bucket is around risk assessment. And anyone who knows and does risk assessment, I spent the first half of my career doing this for large banks. So this stuff was like really an easy read for me. It's probably a little mind-numbing for normal people who didn't do that. But the risk assessment is the big aspect, number one. And there's like three sub-buckets in there. The first one is the risk assessment itself. That's findings 1 through 3. And this is kind of like CATS isn't implementing the risk assessment process as it was documented in its own safety plan, right? And aspects of assaults on transit workers and what the risks are and what they're doing about it is one of those. So you really can't decide what hazards are most urgent, what countermeasures need to be the highest priority if you're not doing a risk assessment, which leads to the second subpart, which is the performance measurement. You can't just do a risk assessment. You've got to attach it to the performance measurement. Those of you in business might know KPIs, key performance indicators, the things of like, okay, here's the risk. How do we know if the risk is, at high risk, if our controls are working or not? And then finally, the third piece is the risk reduction program, really trying out your mitigants. What are you going to do to make something go this way or that way, and how they ultimately affect those performance measures. So those three all kind of bundle into that one big part, which is the risk assessment process. And I think that the punchline here, and I'll use a real example to help folks understand it. Imagine CATS deciding to stop, as you mentioned earlier, having bus drivers confront riders over fares to keep the bus drivers safe. This is a real thing. It happened while I was there. I think you might have even still been there when we were talking about it. That could be exactly the right call, 100%, but under federal rules, you can't just issue a memo. You're required to document what risks are we solving, how big is it, what metrics prove this worked, and what new risks did we create. And the audit suggests that those steps weren't done in a structured way, even when the intentions were good of what they did. So again, you can kind of see and understand
it's not the wrong direction to move. It's just not done in as efficient a procedure or process as it should have been.
Exactly. So Brent Cagle and
or
team,
it's not as measurable, so you can go back and determine, was this the right call?
It was top of mind. They were focusing on a lot of things, but they were picking up from what was really an organization, at least at the top of the house, was in shambles leading up to that point where publicly it was understood with the derailments. Then Brent Cagle came in. This was a large feat that he had to attack from the top down in that organization. And you can see in the language in this, they made a lot of progress, but there's more to be done. So I really think it's important that we kind of note that, hey, this risk assessment stuff, it is important. It's important that we don't send out a memo to say, hey, this is important, we're not going to do this anymore, but we do a risk-based assessment to figure out, okay, here's all the different flavors of it, the unintended consequences, and here's how we track it. And that ultimately, I think, is going to put them in a much better place. A final point on this one, and you kind of mentioned it a little bit in the lead into this, while a lot of that turnaround work has been underway and it's been really good progress so far, but rightly so, the FTA has cited you're still not doing all the things that are required. This has been an evolving target over the last several years where the SSRP, if you are a nerd and you read this thing, you'll notice the Safety Risk Reduction Program, that's more explicit focus on assaults on transit workers, not just kind of some of the safety of the system, but more broadly these security elements like that. That came into play, with the 2020 rules that were required then and delayed a bit through COVID. And then it really came into play in 2024. So it hasn't been that long that some of these things have been required. And while it is not an excuse, I think the CATS leadership today would say, no, this is not an excuse. We need to be doing it. What this brings to the table.
But it's not like it's been ignored for a long period of time.
And it's not also that they had a clean slate. They had to take over and fix an organization with a lot of problems before it. So I think the good news story out of that whole risk assessment piece and what's going to happen is they're going to need to do more work. They're going to need to put more mitigants, which cost money, in place. And I have utmost belief that Brent Cagle and that team are going to do it in good faith. that the FTA is doing in good faith, but there's a whole nother level of leadership around Charlotte, in the city, in the county, in these new authorities, all these places that also need to take it seriously, that also it needs to be on their radar, and they're going to need to put their money where their mouth is. And I think the biggest positive of this entire exercise here is going to be putting it on their radar in a more significant way.
Well, and it's going to be, I think, one of the big things that is going to impact where this goes from here is the now fully formed authority, the governing board of this authority that's been created by virtue of the sales tax that passed in the fall. Our friend David Howard, former Charlotte City Council member, is named the chair of this. It's got a slew of people from all sorts of walks of life in the community, but lots of community leaders that we both know and like. But they have to go now hire, among a lot of other things they have to go do, they have to now go hire what I assume will be called their CEO, but whatever it is will be leading this authority. Who they hire, what sort of person they hire, whether that's somebody coming in with a transit background or someone coming in with a business background or whatever. I don't know who all's under consideration. I don't know exactly what the timeline is for that process. I assume they're going to want to do it sooner than later, but as we've seen at CATS, having the right leader versus the wrong leader can make a really big difference. And this authority is going to be bigger than CATS. So all the more important, and it'll be someone we should definitely bring on the podcast when they do get hired, and I'll be very curious to see what their vision is, what their background is, and what all they're bringing to the table in that role.
I think the one message I might give to all these 27 new members of the Transit Authority is a lot of the things you deal with is the long game. Rail, all this stuff, I mean, these are measured in decades. So keep an eye on that. Obviously, that takes a lot of discipline, and you have to focus on it. But also focusing on what quick wins that are lined up and are not a separate mission than that long-term goal you can establish, and making sure that those touch on these safety issues. There are things you could do right now that can be headlines that riders can see and feel and touch that will make them more confident to ride. And other topics as well, like we've discussed in the past with micro-mobility, micro-transit, like things that don't take 10 years. And the consumer who's paying this tax can start to feel their impacts. I think that would be my biggest measure. The last two pieces, I spent most of the time because I think the first one is the biggest, that bucket of all those findings, the biggest one. The other two buckets, the Joint Labor Management Safety Committee problems. These were findings 7 through 13 were kind of all in this bucket. And it basically said that CATS hasn't fully established a committee with equal representation, hasn't defined procedures, hasn't used the committee effectively to review or improve the safety plan. I think, there's probably two things of the inside baseball nerdy stuff for this. One is that board, that body has to have representation, not just from various technical places, but from workers themselves, which is an important part that this administration is trying to protect. But two, and I think this is the biggest part, is right now they have these committees. The problem is committees, it's plural, and there are two. There's one for bus and there's one for rail. And it may seem like a technicality, but these broader ASPs and other kind of federal requirements require one committee that's focused on this. So separating them out in bus and rail may seem like it's okay, but if you're measuring back to that risk assessment, the performance metrics, all of the outcomes you're accountable for, and you've kind of separated that out, it can be a little tough to manage and make sure things didn't fall between the cracks. So when I read that one, I feel like, I think it's not just totally asleep at the wheel. It's that they formed some things.
Well, there's logic.
Ways.
I mean, there's logic behind it. It doesn't mean there's not logic behind what the FTA is recommending as well. But I mean, clearly the challenges that a bus presents and the challenges that a light rail present are going to be different just inherently. And so I could see the thought process behind, well, different challenges, let's address them separately so that we can hone in on what we really need to face as a bus, because a bus operator interfaces with the customer who gets on in a way that's much more close quarters than someone on a light rail train who's in like a locked sort of compartment up at the front of the train. So just all sorts of things. But then again, if there are federal standards that are expected to be met, then you've got that handbook somewhere, and you've got to comply with it.
And it's not just a federal bureaucratic rule that no one understands why. There is a reason for it. It doesn't mean that they weren't doing a lot of the good work in the two committee model, but there is a reason. And I think that's not going to be a hard one to fix. It's just one to fix. And then finally, that last third bucket is really finding 18, the de-escalation training. And at a glance, someone might be like, what? You're not doing that? But it isn't saying they're not doing it. It's saying, look, they need to do it faster. They need to get it rolled out more. But some of the employees need it and didn't get it, right? And, I think there's an argument to be made of like, okay, like how big of a deal is if a maintenance worker doesn't get de-escalation training? Well, they might have to go out on site and be around customers. But again, I don't think there's going to be any pushback from CATS on the fact
not hard to fix.
That like, okay, here we go. So if you think about it and you saw 18 overall findings, you're like, wow.
It sounds dire.
And I'm not trying to downplay. There are some things that need to happen. They're a really big deal.
But they're all fixable.
They're all fixable. As
None
long
are
as it's
incredibly expensive or incredibly hard to fix if there's commitment to do so, which we both think there is. And on some of them, there's already being some efforts in that direction, even prior to the report. Now, it might have been a byproduct of some of the conversations that happened as the report was being put together or the in-person visits. I did appreciate in this how much there's clearly an effort by, again, these career FTA folks that are experts in this field. These are not people with political motivations, came in and not only rode our system and talked to our leadership, but also really talked to the bus drivers, to the light rail drivers, talked to the workers who experience the challenges and see the opportunities every day on the ground. And that's reflected throughout this too. So I do think it was done in a way that was serious, was not trying to, I can't think of the word I'm looking for, but was not trying to make this into some sort of a scare tactic or some sort of a
political
attack
win.
or political points. This was just a, hey, here's where you can get better, and I think we've got people who want to do it.
Secretary Duffy, Administrator Molinaro, and the entire staff of careers that are up there, I got to experience them well enough to know that this is with good but strong intents, and I think the key next steps now, and I've seen it go the other way, dealing with SEPTA and New York City and Boston and Chicago and LA while I was up there. The next 30 days or 29 days, clock started ticking yesterday, for the response to this is the critical time to show them through your words, but those words are tied to the actions you're going to do in a measurable, in a good faith way. You send them and say, not just like, hey, transparently, this is where we can be doing better, but also like, don't fall into the trap that in this political environment, they've given you a softball here of a professional report that points out some bad things, but also pointed out some good things. Now is not the time, like some of these other cities have done, to try to dig your heels in and say, oh, but you're wrong on this, or no, even if you have an argument, this is not the time to do that. This is the time to not just lean in and show what you're going to do to address that and make that a priority, but give them more. Give that, like they deserve, I believe, in the approach they've taken here, a win at the federal level to say you've inspired us to do more than we were going to do before. Because if they had gone another way and said, hey, we're just trying to get a political win out of all of this, maybe not. But they didn't do that. And now's the time to not just do that and everybody gets a win, but it raises the stature and the importance of the body of work that's ahead, which we need everyone to be on the same path with.
Yeah, I don't think anyone should expect any sort of an ass-kissing response. I do think they expect and deserve a serious response, and I think they'll get one from what is a serious report. Sensationalized is the word I was looking for earlier.
I'm glad you came up with that.
They did not sensationalize this, and I do think, to your point about not digging your heels in, and we talked about this earlier as well, but the whole perception thing, and Charlotte has gotten in the trap, and I'm sure you and I have gotten in the trap at times of using statistics to quote unquote or attempt to disprove someone's feeling.
Yeah.
And the fact of the matter is statistics are what they are, and they can be right, but if it's not going to change how someone feels, and so particularly as it revolves around people's feelings of safety on our transit system, we can show them all the statistics we want. I have a handful of friends who, one in particular comes to mind, who used the light rail a lot, does not use it now. And the reason is because of the tragic incidents we saw last year, the one in particular with Arena. show them all the statistics in the world, it's not going to change how they feel. Seeing more security protocols, seeing more presence of officers, feeling a sense that less people are riding without having paid the fare and are maybe just loitering on there, or that there are people with having mental health crises on the train or whatever, and those aren't being dealt with. Any of the things we can do to make people feel more safe are going to improve the statistics, but they're going to change how people feel about our system. And so to your point about not digging your heels in, I agree wholeheartedly, which is don't just point back and go, well, but we're still doing fine. Okay, but let's keep striving to do better.
I bristle up every time I hear the perception, whether it was like earlier on, they're saying this is everyone's perception, or now they're like, well, we understand the stats tell us this, but perception, it's still like perception is a leading indicator of reality in the future. And these like places like, Chicago and some of the places that I don't think anyone would argue it is a perception problem, it's a reality problem. Like once you get to that point, there's not it's a big lift to stop. So to try to downplay things that people are really feeling, or
I'm agreeing. I'm saying they shouldn't do.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But I think we should take special care how we use the word perception and stats together, even in the fair way you just said it, which is great to see our progression as a community to this point. But it's still it still has this underlying factor of like trying to forgive, like, it isn't the real reality, but we understand that you think this, therefore we're going to take it seriously. Like, it is reality. Like people aren't riding there because they see stories of problems. Maybe the numbers are low, but they are up. And the FTA has cited that stuff. So the point is we're now at a time where we can take this extra serious.
Yeah, and the people who stop using our transit system because they're unnerved by things that happen, by they're not using it any longer, it becomes less safe. So
Absolutely.
I mean, it also is a self-fulfilling prophecy in that way. And so we need to have a system that anybody from 8 to 80 years old feels comfortable on and uses, because the more people that use it, the safer it becomes.
All right, well, you've got to go get your pair of pants properly stretched and put in the
I'm not taking those
suitcase.
pants to New York.
I'd take them.
I'm taking all the waist, like not Velcro.
Tell me you've got Velcro pants. Oh, wait.
Why can't I think of words today?
Is it
stretchy pants? Whatever.
Yeah, your stretchy Velcro pants. So when you get inside, I'm imagining you go in, they're like, okay, course number 6, and you're like, rah! That's how it happens?
Tearaways, yeah.
All right.
Yeah, I'll weigh myself before I leave tomorrow morning, and I'll weigh myself when I get back. We'll see what happens.
Wear the same pair of Velcro pants, though, when you do it, so it's a true measure.
Yeah, I guess that's how we're going to end this episode, unfortunately.
Okay, well, we did it, folks. Week 2 in the books.
We appreciate you joining us, as always.
See ya.
Wish me luck.